Hi everyone and welcome back to my podcast channel. I'm here with Dr. George, who has recently finished his PhD from University of Sussex. So this podcast is going to be migration, culture, and the academic journey. And this podcast is compelling conversation that dives into George's transformation from a student in Mexico to the scholar in the UK. Together, we will explore the academic system, cultural shifts, mental journeys, and real world questions about the job market and the future of research. So, you're welcome, George. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Suraj. I am really happy of being here. Thank you for the invitation. I told you, I think, earlier that I enjoy listening podcasts. I'm all-time listening podcasts, so I am really happy of being finally in one of them.
Thank you for being here, George. So, we'll start with a quick fire round.
Okay.
So, it's going to be a one-to-one answer.
Mm-hmm.
So, London or Brighton?
Brighton, definitely.
And research papers or hands-on experience?
I think both.
That's a good answer. And tacos in Mexico or British breakfast?
Oh, no. Definitely tacos in Mexico. Definitely.
So, this is kind of the next question is like, what's something British culture still hasn't understood about Latin people?
I think that despite Latin America is far away, there are more things in common that we might not be aware, but those connections exist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a nice quick fire round. So we will deep dive into roots in Mexico and your early education, how you started, how you grew up and everything. So we'll just talk about the background. So where in Mexico did you grow up?
I am from the south of Mexico. I am from a state that is called Chiapas, and we are in the very south. Actually, my state is in the border with Guatemala. That is a Central American country that is just next to us. In the north, is the US. In the south, we have Guatemala. And I was born there and I grew up there. But then I lived many years in the west of Mexico in two states. One is called Michoacán, another one is called Colima.
Okay.
So I've been around there and here.
It sounds like more you lived a life along the coastline. You just mentioned south side.
Yes, but my I didn't explain. We're in the Pacific, but my city that is called Tuxtla Gutiérrez is in the center of the state.
Oh.
So we have no coast.
Oh.
The coast of the state is 5 hours by car from.
But you
from
were living in
my
the main
hometown.
city center.
Yes. In a central area of the state.
So the next question, like, what was your school college system like there?
Well, I don't have many references to compare with other systems, international systems in terms of basic education. But my parents, they really believed in education and they made enormous efforts to provide me and my brother the best education possible. In my case, I had the opportunity to study in a private school from kindergarten to college, which we have like these 3 years before university.
Yeah.
So I was in the same school all those years. I think it was a great opportunity because that helped me to then be able to get a good score and to enter a good university. So I was.
It sounds more like you belong to the educated family now. Yeah.
I mean, well, you know every family's story, but my dad, who was quite influential in my education, he saw how his brothers and sisters, they had opportunities to study in private schools, and then he didn't have that chance because he was the youngest one. And when it was the time for him to, because many of them used to move when they were teenagers, they would move from their town to the capital where I was born.
All right.
And but my grandfather that I didn't meet, he died when my father was young, so he didn't have the opportunity to study in a private school, and that's why he was really he made great efforts to I was the older child.
Nice.
So he wanted that I could have the opportunities that he
Wow.
didn't have.
Amazing. Nice. So it's all started from the grandfathers.
Yes.
You say that. Nice.
Long stories, family
Long
stories.
stories. Yeah. When did you realize you wanted to study abroad?
Well, this is an interesting story.
Yes.
And it's quite it has a sad part in the middle, but you know, when I was younger, I never had like this my mindset was quite different, and when I was studying, I really wanted just to finish my bachelor's degree and start working. The years before I started studying university were difficult economic years for my family, and I just really wanted, you know, to that was my only objective, to finish my bachelor's degree and start working and earning money. But my father, he was always, you know, pushing me. Jorge, first it was, Jorge, you need to study a master's degree, and I didn't want. And I was like, no, Dad, I want to work. I want to earn money. No, you need to study a master's degree. And then he started pushing me, like he was saying, Jorge, you need to study a master's degree abroad.
Wow.
And I was like, no, Dad, like I want to work, but one day that I was back in my hometown because I was on vacation. It was the summer break, and no, it was the winter break. And I was reading something about climate change, I think. I studied environmental science. My bachelor's degree is in environmental science. And I remember I was so excited of what I was reading, and I told him, my dad was watching TV, and I told him, look, I really love my degree. I really like what I'm doing, what I'm studying. And he told me, hey, promise me that you're gonna study a master's degree abroad. And I don't know why that was the first time that I said, okay, I will do it. Unfortunately, that was like, it was in the night, and after that, I went to sleep and I said, Dad, have a good night. And he died. He passed away in a car accident the next day. So when this happened, that was like a traumatic experience because I was 19 years old. I kept that promise. And because of that promise because those were my last words with my dad. Like he was like, promise me that you're gonna study a master's degree abroad. And I told him yes. It was the first time. Because I always used to tell him, no, I want to work. That was the first time I told him yes, I will do it. And after that, I started, I had that promise, and I knew that that was something that I was going to give to the memory of my dad. And then after that, I mean, I was 19 years old. I had some years. I did my master's degree when I was 23 years old. But it was because of that promise that I promised that to my dad on the last time I spoke with him. So yeah,
That was
it all started. It all started there.
That was inspirational actually. Your dad has a long seaside, educational seaside horizon. Like
Yeah,
he knew the values of education.
he was seeing things that I wasn't able to see at that time.
Oh yeah.
So he was aware and he was pushing me. And well, I'm glad he saw that because I could follow that advice, because definitely when I studied my master's degree, that was something that changed my life, because coming here to, you know, to this wonderful international setting really makes you to grow in many aspects.
Okay. So we'll go for the next question. Did leaving Mexico feel like expansion in your intellectual level?
Definitely, although at the beginning it was hard. I remember my first night in London.
Mm-hmm.
So we are talking 2013.
Oh,
So that's almost
13,
almost
12, 13
almost
years.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was living in a hostel the first days while I was looking for a home. And I remember that first night, like I didn't have much money with me, and I was in a Skype call with my girlfriend at the time, and I was crying with her like, look, this is so difficult, like I couldn't speak English properly, I couldn't understand, it was cold, it was it was hard to imagine, like coming to London without contacts, finding a home. I assume it was something similar what happened when you came here.
Yeah.
It's hard at the beginning, but then definitely, I grew up. I grew a lot during that year, and I think the main expansion in intellectual terms could be that I was able to meet people from all over the world, from different backgrounds, different religions, like different perspectives.
Okay.
And I think that opens your mind, because when you are at home, maybe everyone has the same religion or the same mindset, and then when you see that there is a diversity, I think you become more open to ideas and knowledges and just different views of the world.
So that's a right expansion of your intellectual.
Definitely. I think the UK is an amazing place because you have people from all over the world, and it's not only what you learn from the UK, but what you learn from all over the world, like from different places of the world, because you have people from everywhere here.
I agree. So we will move to the next part now. So I would like to mention here, first of all, George finished his masters from UCL London, and I would like to ask you something about from UCL from London, UCL London, where you finished your masters, to University of Sussex, you finish your PhD, and why this is journey. We will have this short conversation now. So why UCL, and what drew you to study in the UK?
Well, that is not a story, not as structured maybe. So I wanted to study abroad. I didn't necessarily have the idea to study in the UK, but I wanted to study abroad. So I started looking for options. And I already knew English, or I thought I knew, because my English was very bad at the time. So I thought, I can go to the US or to the UK, because there the programs are in English.
Yeah.
But the US the programs are more expensive and they are longer. So I saw that here the master programs were only 1 year and they were very focused. I really like that because I was coming from doing research for my bachelor's degree dissertation, and I didn't want to engage, another degree, another thesis. Like I wanted something very focused, and I studied environmental science, but then I wanted to become an urban planner, and I studied urban planning here. And I only wanted, to be specialized in that domain. So that was the reason why I came to study here. Why I studied at UCL, I applied for different programs. But that program in UCL, it was fantastic. I don't think many programs have that. But that program that I studied, during the year of the master's degree, it included fieldwork. And in my case, my fieldwork was in Tanzania, in Africa. So imagine like having the opportunity of going for 3 weeks with your colleagues to do research to a country. In my case, always my training has been on developing countries or low and middle income countries. So having that opportunity was amazing, and I chose that program because the program had that fieldwork included, which was something that other programs didn't have, and that's why I studied there at UCL. Then I came here. When you study a master's degree, it's very different than studying a PhD. Because when you study a master, you want to become a specialist in a particular area, right?
Yes.
But 1 year is short. So in 1 year, you get a sense of what is happening in that particular discipline. And there it's important to go to a place with good reputation where you are going to have interesting classes, activities that you're going to learn. When you are doing a PhD, you are focused on developing your research, your own research. So there, the rest of the university or the other courses or the institution is important, but what is most important is that you can go and work with a good supervisor that is an expert in your field, because you're going to become an expert. So it doesn't matter, like for example, UCL is a bigger university than Sussex. But in Sussex, I found the right people to work with. So it was more important to have the right supervisors here at Sussex, and that's why I moved from UCL to Sussex. At UCL, where I did my master's degree, there weren't many people working in the topics I wanted to explore in the PhD. So that's why even when the institution is a bigger institution, more relevant, it was better to study here.
Oh, that was nice. That was actually quite like subjective, means keeping your subject topic. But it's a good program that you got on like field work in your masters.
It was amazing.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So we will go on the next question. So, what was the biggest cultural academic shock when you arrived here?
Well, I think something that doesn't speak very well of Mexicans is that I think sometimes we are not very formal. So let's say we are used to, I'm not saying that everyone is like this, but let's say we are gonna have a meeting and then we said we are gonna meet at this time. Many times we arrive late.
Yeah.
Or one day before you can tell me, hey look, I'm not ready, let's meet later. Or I think we are not as formal as Europeans, and of course there are many kinds of Europeans and cultures vary, but for example, if you have a deadline, like also we are more flexible with deadlines, and the main cultural shock was like coming here, like if you said that you're gonna deliver that piece of work by that day, people expect that will happen. There is no flexibility. There can be, but it's not expected.
Mhm.
And if you said that you were going to have a meeting at a certain time, let's say you were going to have a 20-minute meeting with someone, and then something happened. You missed the bus, the train, whatever, and you arrive 15 minutes later, your meeting will be 5 minutes. That person will not extend. And I think that I learned that hard way because I missed some meetings.
Okay.
and I learned to be more disciplined with commitments because I think that's how it should be, but here there is less flexibility than in Mexico. And I would say in Latin America in general, I don't want to generalize, but I think our culture is generally more flexible.
That's really live examples you just mentioned here. There are like good examples. A culture shocks. That's really nice. And I would like to ask you a question. Why a PhD and what topic did you focus on?
Well, this is my opinion, and I know that many of my colleagues don't agree, but that's what I think. I think the only reason to study a PhD, I mean, the reason I think it's because doing a PhD is a sacrifice. Like you invest years, you are like maybe you are a professional and then you become a student again for a few years. So I think the reason to do it is because you are building an academic career, right? Like when you study a PhD, you conduct research and then you create knowledge and you become an expert in a very particular subject that you are studying or a very particular phenomenon that you want to understand. And you do that process in academic terms. There are people that conduct research maybe, but market research or research for a consultancy. In that kind of research, you don't need a PhD. You need a PhD to conduct academic research. And that means that is research, that means there is knowledge that you are creating, that you are aware of the theory, and there is knowledge that is reliable knowledge, right? And then many times you are looking for knowledge that is generalizable. Like it's how, if we study this subject, in general, the world will have a better understanding of whatever you are studying. So I would say that if you want to build an academic career, that's when you study a PhD. And in my case, when I was in my 20s, maybe I wanted to do practical things and I worked for governments, for local governments, for a few years. But in Mexico, local governments change every 3 years. So every 3 years you have a new mayor and then you have new people. So even if you are a very good public official, like regardless your performance, it's very likely that you're gonna lose your job in the next election. And that is quite a handicap if you are building a long-term career. So I had great experiences. I loved my previous jobs as a public official, but then I was 29 years old and I thought, well, I can keep working in a place where I have uncertainty. So then I had this reflection of where I wanted to conduct what avenues I wanted to take for my career, and then I decided to start an academic career. And to start an academic career, you need a PhD, and that's why I came here to study development studies. That is an interdisciplinary field in which we study the problems of developing countries, like low and middle income countries, countries that have been oppressed by colonialism, and environmental problems, problems of democracy, inequalities, gender issues. Those are like common topics of development studies.
Nice. I understand it's a big question. The question and the answer should be like the big, but you managed to briefly answer it in short context. I appreciate that. I can imagine like how you organize thinker are now. Thank you very much. And I think you just given an answer about comparing masters versus PhD. Which one you more about yourself? You just shared. You just finished like 2-3 questions in one go.
When you
That's
have
really
there,
nice. Yeah, you already covered it.
you have a very planned schedule for the podcast.
So I would like to say it like you don't just study abroad, you grow up abroad because you studied your masters in London and a PhD here in the Brighton. It was like almost 6 to 7 years, and again ahead of 3 years you will continue here in the UK. So it's like 8 years.
Yeah. I was thinking about that when you mentioned earlier. My bachelor's degree was 3 years in Mexico, so I studied in Mexico 3 years, and then the master's degree here was 1 year, but then the PhD was more than 4 years. So I've been trained now more years here than in Mexico, although I have always studied in my research and in my dissertations, I have always studied issues of my country, so I don't feel quite disconnected in that sense. But yes, my education has been now more here. I hope I don't study more years and we keep it there.
I appreciate
but you
it.
never know.
Nice. Nicely, succinctly presented. Thank you. We will move forward with the cultural identity, belonging, and daily life in the UK.
Okay.
So, what part of Mexico did you bring with you every day in the UK?
Well, as I told you, I have lived in different parts of Mexico, so I think I bring all that story with me.
Okay.
It's hard to say now, for example, where do you belong? When they ask me that, I know where I was born and where I grew up.
Yeah.
But I'm 35 now, and I left that place. I haven't lived there since I was 18 years old. So I live in different cities of Mexico, and I have had parts of my life in different places, and I think I bring all of that. And if I go back to Mexico, when I go back, I also bring my experiences of the UK as an immigrant, as an international professional. So I think I carry all the places I've been all the time.
That's nicely answered. We'll move ahead with our food now. How did the food, friends, or faith help you stay grounded?
Well, I think for me, friends in general, but more recently food has been very important. I think here in the UK we have, as I was mentioning, we meet many people from different parts of the world, and that means like learning from them and spending time with them, and many times also sharing the table. And sometimes it's you are in the position of I'm gonna cook something for these friends that I'm gonna cook something I know they can't find here, and I'm gonna do it, with special care to share a part of my culture that is also a part of me, with this dear friend or with this dear colleague, and I think the same happens the other way around. So I have had Asian, African friends, Middle Eastern friends, European friends, South American friends, and I think over food, and we have developed our friendships, and that is something wonderful that I think happens when you are in a place where you have all this diversity and
So
mixture.
nice. Yeah, and I do recognize, I would like to mention my story means I do remember when I came here for my master's and I joined the house means where you were living. So you warmly greeted me with your Mexican breakfast. You planned a breakfast. We had it a little bit. That was a warm welcome for me.
Yeah, that has become a good custom, I would say, because I recently cooked, for example, for my supervisors who have been guiding me and supporting me for years, and I think it's a good way to say, look, here's something I'm sharing with you. And for me in particular, many people enjoy cooking and it's like a hobby for them. For me, the cooking is not like I am like a huge fan. It's okay, I enjoy it in a way, but what I really enjoy is the sharing. Like that part when you have a friend, you have a colleague, and you are sharing, and you see that they are enjoying. That is amazing.
Oh, that was good stories behind staying grounded. That's nice. And ever feel like you were between two worlds, not fully here, not fully there?
Definitely, yeah. Not fully in any place.
You were just moving back and forth.
But that is rich as well, because you have different perspectives.
Oh yeah.
For example, I have many friends that they are fans of British culture because they watch a movie or they watch a series or something, and I see that sometimes that that notion maybe is a notion that is not real because it's only a representation that you watch in a movie. And I think that having the opportunity of being in different places gives you the possibility of seeing the reality.
Did you ever feel invincible in your classroom?
Invincible?
Yes.
Possibly. Well, definitely, I would say, but also very powerless in other moments. Because depends. I don't know. For example, when I was in elementary school, I had good grades and I felt like very confident. But then when you go to university and then you meet people from different parts of the country, and then you are not that invincible because you have raised the bar of competition. And then when you come to a place like this one where you are learning with people from all over the world, then also you notice that you are not that special, that there are many people.
You don't have that supernatural power.
Yeah. So then that invincibility becomes a bit less confident, I would say.
That was funny.
And when you are learning in a different language as well, we are not as at the end it's not your native language, so it's hard to perform as good as you perform in your first language. So
fair enough. That answers.
But you only learn this when you move, when you go out of your maybe where you grew up and your comfort zone, and then you expose yourself to
100% makes sense. So we will go in the next part, the UK job market and the academic reality check. So giving insights to future students and professionals. We'll just on the question those and answer. After finishing your masters, what did the job scene really look like?
Well, I didn't look for opportunities here. It was times were different. That was before Brexit. So it was very hard as an international student to stay because you needed to be sponsored.
Oh,
We didn't have graduate visa, for example, that allows you to stay for some time to look for opportunities. So always my plan was to go back to Mexico, and I didn't try to stay.
nice.
Something that I learned back then that I tell my colleagues who study a master's degree is that definitely studying a master's degree abroad is something that helps in your, in your professional journey, like in your CV, it looks nice, like it's an achievement. But the benefits of that achievement, in my experience, generally they don't happen automatically. It's not that you come back to your country and then there will be 10 or 20 companies or organizations telling you, hey, come work with us.
Come work with us.
Yeah, no, it takes time. And in my case, it took some time. I went to work back to my job before the master's degree, and only after a year I found the opportunity to work as an urban planner in a local government, which is what I studied in my master's degree, but that only happened 1 year after. That was back then. Nowadays we are seeing that there is a lot of competition for PhDs. In the past, you will finish a PhD and it will be relatively easier to find an academic job at a university. Maybe in previous decades where we were having new universities being built or the universities were expanding. But now what I see is that we have more and more PhDs and only a few job opportunities in universities. So the competition is fierce, and I think it's very important that for people who study a PhD, they study subjects that are trending, that are growing. Not my case, for example, but if you are becoming an expert in AI nowadays, that's quite useful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's trendy. All right, that was nice answer. So, do you think international students are prepared well for the job hunting here?
I don't think, because we are not used to. We are international students. We learn maybe to find jobs in our previous contexts, but now we are in a new context. And something I learned in my job hunt after the PhD is that there are many things that are helpful when you are in that process that maybe are not evident to you, because maybe in my case, after my PhD, I was looking for opportunities here as well, and I had never looked for a job here. So there were many things that I had to learn, like how long should be a CV, what information you are going to include in the CV, what is relevant for people recruiting here, what is not relevant, how not to waste your time, because many job opportunities, they are fake. They post the opportunity, but they might have someone, which that is very different, for example, for the context in Mexico. I'm not saying that there are there aren't fake job opportunities being advertised there. But what is more common there is that if you are my friend, or if you are my student, or you are my colleague, and I think you are the right person for the job, I will give the job to you.
Yes.
I will not advertise it.
Yeah.
While here, many organizations, and that is good, many organizations, they have a policy where they need to advertise. And sometimes you don't know, and then you waste your time. So I think we are not prepared. We need to learn what works in the context that you are looking for opportunities, but also to recognize that you as an international student, you are bringing, as an international professional, you are bringing a lot to the table, because you are a person that maybe had to learn a different language, maybe definitely move to a different context, and you adapt. And that adaptability is very important in jobs. You need people who are resilient, who can adapt, who can develop solutions when there is uncertainty. And I think we develop those skills while coming to a new place and trying to build a career in a place where we are not used to. So.
Yeah. It sounds daunting, but as you further move and answer the questions how we can confidently overcome those situations, even we come across a fake scenario or fake advertisement, that's real market. You just derive in specified context. That's really nice. Appreciate it. And I'd like to go further. Did the PhD help you access better roles or networks?
Well, depends how you define better roles or networks. As I mentioned earlier, I think there is this mistake in thinking that the academic degrees are like a linear path, like master's degree is better than bachelor's degree, and then PhD is better, and then they are just different things.
Yeah, equally excelled.
So if you study a master's degree, you're gonna access different opportunities than if you study a PhD.
Yeah.
The difference is that you need to not always, but often people study masters and then PhD.
Yeah.
Not always. There are some people that from the bachelor they go directly to PhD. But the PhD is just differently. It's just to conduct research. So the kinds of networks that you develop are very different, and they work for different things. You develop connections with other academics, with other experts, with other PhD students, mainly in academia. Sometimes outside academia, but your connections are mainly in academia. While in a master's degree, you are open more to the professional world outside academia. It's unlikely that after your master's degree, you are gonna work in a university, while after the PhD is more likely. So it's just different, I would say.
Oh, that's nice. So, is the UK welcoming enough post-graduation?
For job opportunities?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a country that has had for a long time professionals from everywhere.
Yeah.
And that is an advantage. That you generally, the UK is diverse. You have if you go to India, maybe the job market is only for Indians or mostly for Indians. And then if you're a foreigner in India, it might be more difficult to find a job there as a foreigner than as a foreigner here, because here the job market is international as well.
Yeah.
So in that way, I think it's more welcoming than many countries. It's more welcoming than Mexico, for example. But definitely we have to recognize that we compete in disadvantage because of the reasons that we just mentioned. So we need to make even a bigger effort to find a place in this market if we want to explore opportunities here.
All right, nice. So we'll go further. Advice for the global students and researchers who will deliver value plus inspiration to the future builders. So the first question would be, what mindset should an individual student have before coming to the UK?
I think that openness is one of the most important characteristics, because when I know I have colleagues that they have had maybe international backgrounds since they were very young.
Okay.
It was not my case, but I think the case of many people is that if you grew up in a place, you have certain ways to see the world.
Yeah.
And that involves your habits, your religion, your identity is shaped by a certain context that is more homogeneous, right? When you come here, you see a huge diversity, and if you are not open enough, you might be only engaging with maybe people who are similar to you. So then you see people from all the world, but then you will end up only and still more connected to the place you are coming than the place you are actually. So openness is very important. And I would say that friendship as well, because when you are an immigrant, you are in a different context, and you don't have all those networks that maybe you have developed in your lives. And it's very important to have to create those new networks and to have as many friends as possible, as many colleagues, because that is your new network in the new place, and that will bring you more opportunities sometimes than just applying for a job.
That sounds like networking as well. Yeah,
definitely, because many things in our lives happen through our connections.
Yeah, I agree.
Having genuine connections, I'm not saying transactional connections, but genuine friendship, good relationship with colleagues, that is very important.
That's nice. And one academic habit that helped you survive graduation school, because most of the people who do PhD, they get burned out, they feel like a lesson spoiled, like getting drowning into a less motivating.
Yeah, it's very challenging to conduct research in a PhD, because you are learning, when you are studying a PhD, you are learning how to conduct independent research.
Yeah.
You are not fully independent because you have supervisors who will guide you and who will check that your research is being done in a proper way. But you are learning, and when you are attempting to do independent research, that means that it's on you. So that means that you can wake up on a Monday and maybe just watch TV, because there will be no one watching you.
Yeah.
Or you can overwork and then burn out.
Yeah.
So and that's very different from when you are working as a professional, because as I mentioned, I was working in a local government.
Yeah.
And you have people demanding things from you all the time.
Oh yeah.
And you have your boss maybe calling you in the morning and you have meetings and you have people going to your office and people calling to your office, and you need to deliver, and maybe you have deadlines that are for the same day, for the next week, and you are navigating those external interactions that you are having with your team, with other teams, with the structure of your institution. When you are conducting research, you need to have that balance, but you need to develop that routine, and that's a very challenging thing to do, which happens with many entrepreneurs as well.
Okay.
When you are an entrepreneur, your venture is depends if you have co-founders, but it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And many entrepreneurs sometimes burn out.
Yeah.
So you need to find that balance, because you need to sleep well, you need to eat well, you need to have social relations, you need to exercise. And only that way you are going to be the most productive that you can be. So it's very important to find your own balance.
Okay, that's nice. And the next one is, what's one thing you wish someone told you before starting your master's?
I don't think it's something I didn't do, but I think it's something that is important to be aware of, and it's just make as many friends as possible and live as many experiences as possible. Because when you're studying, like we are mentioning only two options, master's and PhD.
Yeah.
Hopefully you will not study more than that.
Yeah, I agree.
That takes a long time and life is short. So when you are going to study, let's say a master's degree, that means that you are going to be in this country 1 year in a place where you are going to learn. So 1 year for learning is a big privilege, but also it's something that can go away so fast.
Yeah.
And the connections that you develop when you are in that situation of learning, they are big opportunities. When you are working in an office, it's not as easy, for example, to meet people than when you are studying, because it's something that is new for everyone. Everyone are in that position of learning and creating connections. So I would say that it's important to take advantage of that opportunity from day one.
Yeah.
Because maybe that will be the last degree that you're going to study, and you
Nice.
need to take advantage of it.
Good. Very well answered. Like, one should have been considered before doing their masters.
in this country, 1 year, you blink and then it's the summer and it's
It
finishing.
disappears, finishes.
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned that one should be aware. That a must key note to keep in the mind. So the next one is, do you recommend the PhD path in 2025?
Oof, difficult question. Well, I think that, as we mentioned, a PhD is to conduct research and to create new knowledge, is to develop a contribution to knowledge. Right? I think we are in a very turbulent moment because we are seeing the revolution of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And artificial intelligence is making information more available, right?
Yes. Yeah.
For example, if we wanted to translate this conversation into a different language, we will need a translator, a person who will do that because that person has the knowledge
Yes,
of
yes.
the language that we are speaking and the language that we want the transcription to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Now with ChatGPT you can do that in seconds. So that means that information is easily available. So I think for people whose work was maybe only to produce that information, that is quite risky, right?
Yes.
And that is a huge challenge that our society needs to find ways to engage everyone in the job market. But I think when you study a PhD, you are not doing that mechanical kind of work. You develop the capacity of critical thinking because you are an expert in the field,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
You are not just you have the capacity to identify what pieces of information are reliable and are not.
Yeah, yeah. That most.
And you should have the capacity as well to contribute with new knowledge.
I agree.
What most AI agents do is they search from knowledge that is available and then they bring you something new, but those agents are not necessarily creating, maybe they are creating a new output, but on the basis of information that exists, data that exists on the internet, like generative tools.
Yeah.
So I think being able to produce knowledge critically is now more valuable. Why? Because from now that information is widely available, many people might think that what comes from ChatGPT is real.
Yeah.
And not necessarily. And experts should have the capacity to determine, is this reliable or not? And we need those experts. So I think if you are a professional and you want to become an expert, an academic, if you want to be able to develop knowledge critically, those are skills that are still relevant. I don't know in the future, but from the technology that I can see now, it's still relevant and we have a place in this world. Maybe we will need to adapt. We will see what will happen, but now more than before, we need critical perspectives.
That's really nicely answered. Now I got a clear idea, like one should have a PhD if they really wanted to. That's pretty nice. It actually broaden your horizon and clear your mind and give you more opportunities to see the world in a bigger perspective. That's really nice.
I'm gonna give you an example. With machines.
Yeah.
Before the Industrial Revolution, we needed, people doing manual labor, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we don't have people nowadays doing very specialized manual labor.
Yeah.
Maybe not like moving stuff because you have machines to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not digging holes because you have machines that do that. But carpenters, plumbers, like very specialized manual labor is still useful.
Yes.
Before the revolution that we are seeing now, what I see is that, okay, we have a translation easily available. Maybe.
Yeah.
We have ChatGPT that can produce text easily. But that doesn't mean that we don't need specialized knowledge. And generally, people with PhDs are trained to to develop specialized knowledge.
Mhm.
So I think we will still be useful. At least I hope.
That's fine. And now we will move further to our last part of the podcast. So, what's next for George? As plus final thoughts of the podcast, we'll move on this. So, it's going to be inspirational for the listeners as well because it's going to be the last part. What's next? Research, postdoc, policy, or entrepreneurship?
Well, in my case, I was happy to explore different avenues when I finished my PhD. I have my own consultancy and I've been delivering some projects since then during the PhD and the time after the PhD. But that has been something that has not been full-time. What the opportunity that I found is to continue my research in urban infrastructure at the University of Manchester. So the University of Manchester turned 200 years recently, and they have been funding PhDs and early career researchers.
All right.
So during my PhD, I studied the role of decentralized infrastructure, particularly for water supply in Mexico City. Now I will complement that research with decentralized access to energy. So fortunately I found the opportunity to continue with my research at the University of Manchester.
Fantastic.
And that will be my main occupation, but I'm sure that I will keep from time to time being engaged with consultancy opportunities or maybe policy processes, maybe just as an advisor, not working full time. One thing that I learned in this process when I was thinking, what do I want to do after the PhD, was that I was going to be happy if I kept working in the subjects that I am really passionate. Either because I knew that academic opportunities are not abundant.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, if I can continue working in the topics that I have been trained and I have experience, I will be happy if it's in a different space, not the academic space. Fortunately, I found an opportunity in a university, so we will see. At least for the next 3 years, I will be focused on that.
Nice.
Let's see what happens later.
Nice. Appreciate it for your next research job. So, would you ever move back and build in Mexico?
Definitely. I think in this moment of my life, I decided to explore possibilities here. I was open also, and I applied for some jobs in Mexico as well during this period after my PhD. But I found an opportunity here. We'll see in 3 years' time if there is a good opportunity in Mexico. I will be happy as well. I think despite I've been trained here for many years, my focus has been always in Mexico. Now will be in Latin America with a new project. But in this moment also something I wanted to become was an international professional, because my previous experience has been in Mexico, and I think I moved into this situation of now being an international professional, that I would be happy to go back to Mexico if I find the opportunity there. But if there were other opportunities in other places, maybe I could consider them as well.
Nice. That was a good approach, actually. And a final message to the individual students dreaming of studying abroad.
Well, I think that a message for the audience. My recommendation is to have the courage to do it, because it's not easy. It's not easy to leave maybe your hometown when you are young. Maybe you are also living an environment where you used to live with your family, or maybe you have your friends or your partner, and then moving to a different place is quite challenging. So I would say it's important to have that courage and to be fully aware of why are you doing it, to have a plan, and then if we manage to do it and we manage to move to a new place in an international context, also to be aware of what you are bringing with you that is very valuable.
Oh, right.
Because as we were discussing, sometimes maybe you feel invincible in your context, and then in a different context you don't feel as invincible as invincible as you felt. But that doesn't mean that you are not capable.
Yeah.
That only means that you are growing, and it's important to remember that you are learning and you are adapting. So I think that's very important, because if we recognize that we have that value, then we will have more opportunities to succeed. And I think openness, and also being aware that when you study abroad, is not everything is around your academic journey. You as a person, you learn many things. So also being aware that studying abroad is a comprehensive and integral process. I think that's very important. So if you want to study abroad, do it, try it. I'm not saying that everyone should do it.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it, I think you should try it.
So that's really well organized answer for the individuals who are trying to go for studying abroad. So one should be might consider this advice. I would highly recommend. This was the actual ground reality he just mentioned. The one should experiencing in the real future when hitting the abroad culture. That's really nice. So the final other message to academic questions, their path, and anyone stuck between the cultures. So how do you advise and seek these answers towards the listeners?
What do you mean?
I mean, it's just like academic questions to their path, like they are commonly keeping in their minds, like how it's going to be helpful in their path or their career, or anyone stuck between their cultures, like this culture, the Western culture is only they show in the TV as we come across in their country. Like in that path, how do you generalize or just give or just spread out your light on those ideas?
Well, I think that it's very important to be aware that when you are in this journey, sometimes you will feel that is like that you are in an isolating situation.
Yeah,
right?
people feel it. Yeah.
And and it's hard to grow and to adapt when you are doing it only by yourself. So I think it's important to recognize that when we have these academic challenges, there are also other people who are maybe in a similar situation, and that either you can learn from the experiences of others, or maybe your experience can be helpful to others. So we mentioned about having openness,
Yeah.
but not only openness to diversity, also openness.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to have openness to share what you are living, and to maybe ask for help or ask for advice. And I'm sure that anyone who has been in that path will be happy to help.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are happy to help as well, that can have a valuable impact in the journey of others. So collaboration and seeking for help is very important.
I have to admire for this answer, because you have done your masters, you have done your PhD. So the question to throw you in that way is like, because you spent almost like more than 6 years here in the UK. That's the reason why I just wanted to share this final message to our audience, or the listeners who are listening to this. So that was the actual reason.
You are not alone. Ask for help and help others. That's very important.
That's really helpful. And this podcast, I'm closing with this, like, borders shape where we live, not what we are capable of. You are the real example of this line now.
Well, thank you very much it was a wonderful conversation, and I wish you the best in this project. I hope you have many other people sharing their experiences here.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for having a podcast with me and giving a time to us. Thank you very much, George.
You're welcome.
See you in the next video.
Bye bye.
Bye.